Alright, let's address the elephant in the room before we get started. Two quick things to note. Number one, this is not a theory video. I will speculate over directions the weird root can take in the future, but this is primarily an analysis and a look at where things may be going toward the end. I am going to focus mostly on chapters 2, 4, and 5 along with overall themes. Number two, I'm not using other theories. I don't want to cite a theory for analyses or my own theories. That's just fanfiction, which is fine, don't get me wrong. I got my start writing fanfiction, no, you may not see it, and I want to focus more on what's directly in the text. Good? Good. Let's get into it. I want to examine two questions. What is the weird root? And why is the weird root? The weird root is not Deltarune's genocide root, but Toby Fox wants you to think it is. When you think of Undertale's genocide root, what's different? Save points tell you how many enemies remain. The music slows down significantly, your level increases. There's the repetition of the phrase, "but nobody came." All four of these are elements that are also associated with the weird root. Spamton tells you how many enemies you have left to freeze from his dumpster. The music in Cyberworld in Chapter 2 and Hometown in Chapter 5 slows down. The sword root sees your level increase. And during Chapter 2's Spamton Neophyte, in the weird root specifically, when Kris calls for Susie and Rouse, you get the response, "but nobody came." Those are not the only examples. There are, so far, two hints about the weird root in the game. If you've played without spoilers or internet, how would you know the weird root exists? Well, example A, the sword root in Chapter 3. It's not one-to-one, but the city, the white cloak, the ice magic, and the bluebird all hint at something in Chapter 2 you missed. Especially the line, "The forbidden path began with ice magic." Only Noelle, present in a white cloak throughout Chapter 2 City, uses ice magic. And look at that, a bluebird is there too. Example B, Spamton's dialogue. You defeat him through violence. He says, "You should have done all that earlier, and been the first to own my commemorative ring. Too bad! See you, kid!" While it's true that Spamton is an unreliable narrator, I think this is even more blatant than the first example. And it makes sense. You need to use violence to access the Thorn Ring. If you fight Spamton, you're not on the weird route. It is a hint to go back. So if you realize you need to freeze every enemy to get the Thorn Ring, and then you use Snowgrave on Birdly, congrats! You're on the weird route. But once again, to be clear, despite the parallels, it is not Deltarune's genocide route. What you do in the weird route only matters when Noelle is around. The second she's gone, you can go back to sparing and recruiting enemies. In fact, my weird route save has 3 Chapter 2 enemies in my castle town, along with every enemy from Chapters 3 and 4. The weird route continues after Chapter 2 in Chapters 4 and 5, both of which are almost entirely in the light world. Chapter 5 is entirely in the light world. And the weird route will conclude in Chapter 7, much like the game itself. So that's what the weird route is. But we do still have 2 questions, because now that we know it's not a genocide route, our first question, what is the weird route, morphs into a new one. Why does Toby Fox want us to think it's a genocide route? I think that answer goes hand in hand with the other question of why is the weird route? So bear with me as I explain in depth significant actions throughout the weird route, Noelle's characterization, and what would drive a player to attempt it in the first place beyond sheer curiosity. There is a repeated phrase in all 3 chapters of the weird route. It's spoken differently each time, but it's the common thread. Noelle became stronger. What's notable about this phrase is where else it appears. When you defeat an enemy with violence, you get the phrase, "You became stronger." This is also the case for Chapter 3's sword route. But the enemies you defeat with violence live, they just run away. In turn, Noelle freezes them, they don't get to run. Her strongest spell, Snowgrave, is explicitly described as fatal. In Chapter 4, you are at one point given a choice of phrases you can say just before showing Noelle the Thorn Ring. Noelle will get stronger, ostensibly said by Kris, and Noelle becomes stronger, when you don't even try to hide your presence as a third entity. In Chapter 5, Noelle tells you, Kris, when I cast Snowgrave, I felt stronger than I have in my entire life. So we have progression from narration to you, mimicking either Kris or narration, to Noelle. The Weird Root is specifically about making her stronger. I'll get to why I think that might be in the second half of this video, but for now I want to focus on some of the most interesting aspects of the Weird Root itself. Because, for one thing, even though the Weird Root is about Noelle, Kris, Rouse, Birdly, Susie, Spamton, and the Shadow Mantle Holder all have roles to play. Specifically, there are two aspects of Kris's role in the story and characterization that come to the forefront in the Weird Root. Their relationship with Noelle, and their relationship with you, the player. In Chapter 2, you have multiple opportunities to try to push Kris and Noelle together. In Chapter 3, if you tell Rouse you want Kris to go to the festival with Noelle, he says that's a bad idea. And in Chapter 5, Noelle wants to leave with Kris. Of course, on the normal route, we learn just how close Kris and Noelle were when they were younger. It almost seems like they want to be close again. But like this, when it's not their doing, when you're corrupting Noelle? Chapters 3 and 4 emphasize Kris's relationship with the player, as well as what they want, what Kris wants. We learn in Chapter 5 that Noelle has a darker side, but Chapter 3 hints that Kris does too. Separate from working with the Roaring Knight, yes, since it's pretty clear by now that Kris still cares about Susie, Rouse, and most of Hometown. When you encounter the Shadow Mantle's holder, they say that part of Kris enjoyed yesterday, referring to the Weird Root. They add, knowing you could say it wasn't really you. Kris is being made to stand in front of a mirror and acknowledge that they enjoy the Forbidden Root just as Noelle does. Not fully, sure, but enough that they have an excuse. I was made to do that, it's not something I'd actually do. What I think is notable about the Sword Root is what it portrays. Board 1 is more of a tutorial meant to make the player think of Undertale's Genocide route, and Board 2 is the hint about starting the Weird Root. Board 3, however, is the culmination of this that brings the Shadow Mantle Holder's dialogue together. And just a quick aside, I am going to keep saying that until they get an official name. I know ERAM is the most popular nickname the fandom uses, but until you can convince me that Asgore's name is Bergentrucken, that the old man's name is Gyahaha, or that the Roaring Knight's name is Breath, I will not believe the Shadow Mantle Holder's name is ERAM. You do you, it's fine if you do, I'm just explaining why I'm not going to refer to them that way. Anyway, Board 3 has Kris's avatar, known as Hero Sword, kill more monsters. Monsters you slowly start to realize mimic those in Hometown. Some of the monsters even cower in one location and don't fight back. There's also a black deer that may or may not be Des. Cool, but this isn't really about her. Oh, and to get there you need to make Kris's avatar kill avatars of Rouse and Susie. A separate Tenna avatar also falls victim to the 8-bit menace. Kris visibly flinches when the Rouse and Susie avatars perish. They don't like this. What I think this scene is again, a mirror for Kris, like a dark future. I never thought they would actually slaughter Hometown's residents in the lead up to Chapter 5. But if they keep going down the forbidden path and feeding their dark urges while only blaming the soul, not taking any accountability for what they want, who's to say? More to the point, I think this is a warning for Kris. A come to the angel moment, if you will. Kris now, more than ever, needs to exert control. They need to prove the Shadow Mantle Holder wrong. I'm veering dangerously close to fanfiction territory here, especially since the scenes coming up in Chapter 4 I'm going to mention can take place without doing the Sword Root at all, but I still think it's what the dialogue is saying. And the culmination of this is when Kris's avatar walks out of the game. You can make it attack Kris and then Susie as well. Even if you don't, though, Kris is visibly terrified of it. Yeah, a character popping out of the game is scary, sure. I think it represents more so to Kris that this is all real. Kris cannot pretend it's just a game, what they just experienced. And they won't be able to either because they have to enter the game to get the Shadow Mantle. So to summarize, from a characterization perspective with a dash of close reading, I think the Sword Root is important to Kris as it presents the questions of both their dark side and how much control they really have. That leads into Chapter 4, which is going to be the first time their struggle for control with you impacts the gameplay, in both routes even, so I think it's some nice foreshadowing of what's to come. In Chapter 4, we learn that Kris was pretty busy overnight. They took the Thorn Ring from Noelle, they told her not to mention anything that happened in Chapter 2, and they moved Birdly to the hospital. Seems to me like they do want that game to be just a game after all. They have to be better than you, right? You corrupted Noelle, they didn't. You left Birdly comatose, they didn't. They're trying to fix things. I don't know what the significance of the fact that you can have them turn up the heater for Birdly is, but I do think that it's something you can do is important. The weird route is not about killing everyone. Once again, it's not Deltarune's genocide route. I keep coming back to this for a reason. Noelle did not even have to cast Snowgrave on Birdly specifically. Could have been anyone, any enemy. He was just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and he made the ultimate mistake of playing hero. This is something that will happen with Kris as well. It wasn't malicious, Birdly. See, I wanted you to feel better and maybe even wake up. I was trying to help Noelle, not trying to kill you. That aside, it is important how hard Kris works to undo what you did in Chapter 2. Even if they don't experience the Sword Root, you are causing tangible harm using their body, and they don't want that. They're going to fight back however they can. That's why, once you get to Noelle's house, Kris makes sure to immediately get rid of you and talk to Noelle in private. In the normal route, things are a little different. You get some wacky Looney Tune shenanigans with the hockey stick. I love it. But in the weird route, none of that. It's deadly serious. Kris knows how you work. They can mess with your dialogue choices. They can do malicious compliance. They can remove you, given the chance. But if someone asks them a question that will cause dialogue choices to pop up when you're nearby, they're powerless. They try vehemently to stop Noelle from bringing Chapter 2's events up, and they have one last-ditch please don't dialogue choice for you once they realize you've been given a chance to take back control. But once you take over, there's nothing they can do. Their freedom and agency are completely gone as you corrupt Noelle. He needs to become stronger, and Kris can't stop you. We don't see the immediate aftermath of the scene, but we do get the violence of being thrown in a trash can and beaten. I have to wonder if Kris would have actually killed the soul there had they not been interrupted. We know from Chapter 4 they need the soul for their mysterious plans, and we know from Chapter 5 that they will straight up probably die if they don't have the soul for long enough. But you've ruined everything. You've violated Kris's bodily autonomy to stay on this weird route wherever it's going. There are several other choices in Chapter 4 afterward where Kris will fight with you. When you think of Noelle, Kris gets super tense. At every other point a choice like this happens, Kris does their utmost to exercise control. During the old man's tea party, if you say, no, Kris doesn't want any tea, when Kris gets offered an apple, they quickly eat through it all the way to the core without even giving you a choice in the matter. It's the smallest thing they can do to exert control, and they are taking advantage of it and savoring it. If you try to make them pray for Noelle when you're between sanctuaries, they break Noelle's candle. You try to make Kris say they'll never play piano again, they bite into their hand so hard that it bruises. You need to choose the cruelest options in the moment for these responses, but it shows just how desperate Kris is to have even a semblance of control at this point. There's some other important dialogue in this chapter that pertains to where I think the weird route's going, but before that, I need to discuss Chapter 5. During Chapter 5's weird route, Kris sleeps in all day missing the festival. They really don't want you to do anything with Noelle, sure, but this is also a last ditch for them to exert any autonomy whatsoever. They fight you to stay in bed even as Toriel tells them no one can make them get up, and once you finally do just that, They don't give you any dialogue for checking anything, they walk as slowly as possible. I think they're disassociating hard, but regardless of that, this is their absolute last chance to stop you from what you're going to do. They know they can't at this point once you're up and moving around, but they can still give you Chapter 5's answer to please don't through gameplay. What else can they do to make it clear they do not want this, you should not be doing this, please don't? What makes this all the more tragic is people can tell something's wrong with Kris. Susie knows, obviously, but even Sans drops his typical demeanor and tells them to take it easy. Meanwhile, Susie mentions that in Castletown, Rousey's been down, and he is shocked and relieved to find Kris is alright if you fail the upcoming lake event. The only bit of fun Kris has during the festival is on the Ferris wheel ride with Susie. They allow themselves to be vulnerable and enjoy the moment this one specific time. I don't know if they know what's coming, but the entire time you wander around Hometown, as the ironically titled Happy Town plays, it becomes clear that Kris has done everything they could to stop you and utterly failed. And all they can do during the lake scene is try to keep their head above the water. Even if you try to stop everything at this point, Noelle refuses. While I don't yet understand the significance of the red dot, I do think it's fascinating that what you ultimately do is unearth a darker, more repressed part of Noelle that was always there. Chapter 4 makes it appear as if you're entrancing and fully corrupting her, but Chapter 5 flips everything on its head. The mastermind goes from you to Noelle, and she'll see this route through now, even if you refuse. Thus, Kris is completely helpless as the entities inside and outside their body drag them deeper and deeper into the lake until they drown. Yeah, drown. Kris may still be alive. I won't at all be surprised if in Chapter 7 Side B we still play as them. But the damage sound is there, the screen shaking is there. It is clear that Kris is feeling every bit of pain as the water enters their lungs. That is real. Ultimately, no matter how hard they fight it, in completing the Chapter 5 Weird route, Kris is used up. Perhaps the saddest part about all this is that it was never about them. It was always about Noelle. Yes, the lake incident would have happened either way, but Kris tried everything to stop this. Like Birdly, the one time they fully play the hero, no strings attached, they are punished in the worst possible way for it. It's between this and what you do to Noelle that the point of the weird route feels like abject cruelty. What else could it be? It feels worse than Undertale's genocide route because it involves manipulating and controlling two teenagers against their wishes. It's a psychological horror rather than a slasher. I can't say beyond a shadow of a doubt that's why Toby Fox wants you to think it's another genocide going in. It's a pretty good reveal that it's so much worse, for sure. I felt sick doing Chapter 4's Weird Route last year, and this year, Chapter 5's was even worse. But I do have my own theories about why the Weird Route exists. None of this is confirmed, and the next two chapters could very easily debunk everything I say, but there is enough textual evidence that I feel like I'm starting to get a picture now. There are, at the time of writing, 3 reasons that someone might want to do the Weird Route. One is sheer curiosity. You want to see what the forbidden path is. You want to see what would happen. Maybe there'll be other harder bosses, like the solo spam to Neo fight. We don't have a Deltarune equivalent of the Sans fight yet. Maybe you'll completely break the game and meet Gaster. Please let us meet Gaster, Toby. Maybe it's just because you spent $25 and you feel you need to see every option to get your money's worth. Another reason to do the Weird Route is to push Kris and Noelle together. Chapters 2, 3, and 4 all have romantic implications in some of the Weird Route exclusive dialogue. And even in Chapter 5, it's clear that Noelle cares more about Kris than anyone else. This cruelty is what it'll take to see them get together, and this is what your plan gets you. The final reason, which I think may be the ultimate one, the biggest reason the Weird Route exists, that someone might even want to do it, is to break the prophecy. Specifically, to break the prophecy on a second playthrough. Chapter 2 alone is one thing, but the entire focus of the Weird Route isn't killing everything, it's to make Noelle stronger. Chapter 5's regular ending also hints that Noelle will rejoin the Lancer fan club in Chapter 6. So, You get to play with Noelle early on in the game, and whenever she's on screen, you do your best to make her stronger before she'll rejoin the party later on. It almost seems like there's going to be something significant she won't be strong enough to stop in the normal route. And because she can't stop it, the prophecy continues on unabated. We don't know what the final tragedy is, but we do know it will be bad. So, what are you willing to do to stop it? What can you do? If this is working against you at every turn, is there any wildcard you can work with? Oh, Noelle. You can work with Noelle. I keep saying this because it's true, because it's necessary. The weird route is not a genocide route. The entire purpose is powering Noelle up against every enemy in front of her until she can cast Snowgrave. It's possible this will tie into a Titan encounter later on due to some flavor text about fatal damage, but I can't say for sure. Maybe it's more she needs to be emotionally strong than physically. It's just too soon to tell. The point is, you make her cast Snowgrave in Chapter 2, and in Chapter 4, you make sure she gets the Thorn Ring back. But the prophecy refuses to change. Chapters 1 through 4 all remain the same, even the final prophecy. You break a beat off, but everything is still on track. Snowgrave isn't enough. We don't know everything Rouse knows, but we know he doesn't know everything. Chapter 5 makes it clear there is plenty he's unaware of. But I can't help but wonder if he is aware of the weird route and its ultimate goal. He tries to dissuade you from taking Noelle to the festival in Chapter 3, and in Chapter 4, only on the weird route, he actively says that even if you do change the prophecy, how do you know it won't lead to something even worse? That's one of my favorite lines in the game, by the way. It's the only dialogue in Chapter 4's weird route that you get by choosing the kind option. All the other dialogue you get from choosing cruelty. There's a small exchange with the old man where you say you're going nowhere and he'll talk about the weird route, but that's more neutral. Sure enough, everything is worse so far in Chapter 2. Spamton Neo is harder, the fight is bleaker, Spamton straight up dies at the end, you have an extremely truncated chapter, Birdly is comatose at best. It's pretty bad. Now, before I get into how Chapter 5 brings all this together, there is one thing I'm curious about. Whatever the reason we need Noelle to become stronger, if it happens in Chapter 6 or Chapter 7 will determine the significance of the lake scene in Chapter 5. What I mean is that if this event is in Chapter 7, then yes, we're basically doing a speedrun skip to get to the end, and this was probably all planned. It could also be that there's no other way to use Noelle in Chapter 7. But I'm not sure about that. Think about the implications if the reason we need Noelle to become stronger is in Chapter 6. That means we've succeeded too well. She takes complete control, and when you try to stop her from taking Kris with her into the lake, she refuses to listen. Yes, there are video gamey elements to all this that will definitely be important, but we are at a point where whatever happens with Noelle specifically will determine the true significance of this scene. Has your project to change the prophecy gotten completely out of hand? But it worked, didn't it? There's no Flower King Darkworld anymore. There's no Flower Man trapped in Asylum. I hope this was worth it. Or was this all according to plan after all? Rouse sure doesn't expect to see Kris in Chapter 5's weird route. It's entirely possible the ultimate goal of this was to skip ahead to Chapter 7. But if that's the case, I can't even speculate about why. I've got no clue whatsoever there. Part of what makes analyzing all of this so difficult is that we do still have 2 more chapters. I feel reasonably confident about my thoughts on the event Noelle needs to become stronger for. If it's in Chapter 6, then the weird route succeeds and takes things completely off the rails. But will it really be better this way? I keep coming back to when Noelle says, "You can't even say stop like you used to." How much of the weird route at this point is your plan versus Noelle's? This is also another parallel to Undertale's genocide route, now that you're no longer the one in control. You fail the lake event, you play through the rest of the chapter normally, for the most part, but Noelle remembers everything, and you and Kris can still be at odds about their relationship with her. There are honestly so many directions this could take in Chapter 6, but I do ironically feel bad for the Noelle who isn't able to cross the lake. She feels trapped more than ever before now. It's like that one Onion article. Deer who thought she'd lost all hope loses last additional bit of hope she didn't even know she still had. So I've gone over what the weird root is, and I've gone over why I think the weird root is. Emphasis on the I think once again. When Chapter 6 releases, hopefully next year, we will have a much clearer picture of where everything is going. But there are still so many mysteries tied to it either way. I tend to end my lectures with questions for my students. You were the one who clicked onto an English professor analyzes video, so you're going to get the same thing, as I list a few of the mysteries remaining. Why is the romantic bend a part of it? It feels like commentary on treating the characters like toys, which would fit with the weird root overall, but I wonder if there's more to it. Does Kris know about your goal with the weird root, or are they only focused on protecting Noelle, and eventually their own autonomy? How much does Rouse know about the weird root, and does he tell Kris anything about it? How much of the sword root is metaphorical and/or a warning, rather than a literal depiction of what will happen? I didn't get to mention this earlier, but with how hard Kris tries to keep you from entering the shelter as their avatar, they clearly think at least some of the sword root is real. I just don't think that that's all there is to it. How do the video gamey elements fit into this? I know device theory is a thing, I respect it in the creator immensely, but don't really have 10 hours to spend watching a theory. I just want to focus on what specifically is in the text we have. What of the red dot from Chapter 4 and the beginning of Chapter 5? And lastly, why does Toby Fox want us to think the weird root is Deltarune's genocide root? It very well could just be a take you by surprise when it changes directions, but I wonder if there's more to it. Thank you so much for watching. I really adore Deltarune. I could dig into it forever. I don't really want to exclusively do Deltarune content, but my last video on it was really well received, which I'm so touched by. So I might keep making more as long as you all like them. I have a lot of fun doing literary analyses and videos in general, and Deltarune is a dense game, so it's felt like a natural fit so far. See you with whatever's next.